Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome here to the launch pad and our live launch coverage of SpaceX Transporter 8 launching from Slick 4E at Vandenberg Space Force Base in California. If it's your first time here, welcome. My name is Zach. I'm the founder and host here of TLP, and here at the launch pad, it's our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow because we believe that space is better together, and we're glad to have you joining us here. I know we saw lots of people joining in the chat. We've got Henrik from Denmark, Tom's in Augsburg, Germany. We got Pedro's in Portugal. We got Ricky's in Tennessee. Kat's in Long Beach, California. A few other Californias. We've got Memphis. We've got Florida. We've got more Tennessees. Great having you all joining us here this afternoon as we are now just over 10 minutes away from a launch of the second Falcon 9 of today. The first one launching 52 Starlink satellites from here on the Space Coast bright and early this morning. And now we're back for the launch of Transporter 8. Carrying a large number of cargo rideshare satellites into orbit. Total payload deployment is going to take about an hour and a half today. We will be staying live during that whole time, bringing you full coverage and answering your questions. As always, you can send those in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad, and we'll work on answering those to our best of our ability. We are now at T-minus 10 minutes and counting. Propellant load well underway on the Falcon 9. Falcon 9 booster 1071 going for its 9th flight, having previously supported a number of Starlink satellites, the SWAP mission, Sarah 1, NROL 85 and 87, going, as we said, for its 9th mission here. Majority of those took place, actually all of them took place, launching out of Vandenberg. Its first flight took place back in February 2022, with its last flight on March 17th of this year, carrying Starlink Group 2-8. We are waiting for SpaceX to get underway here today. They did have a small delay, originally targeting 5:15 p.m. local time here on the East Coast, now targeting 5:35 p.m., so a 20-minute delay there. No exact words on why they did that delay, but they are able to have a launch window here. Today's window is from 5:19 p.m. until 6:16 p.m. So just under a 1-hour window for today's launch. So we could still have had a longer hold, but they are now into that count, now under 9 minutes and counting from launch. And of course, once we get that live view, we will be able to do so. Vandenberg's a little bit harder for us to get a camera out there, as it is a more restricted base with less public viewing than there is over here on the Space Coast. As you can see, SpaceX is getting underway. Telemetry is online for the Falcon 9 rocket as it prepares to lift off. If you haven't yet, take a moment, engage that like button, share out the stream. It really does help us out. Invite people to join us. Of course, it is launch day, which means you can use promo code launch day to get 10% off everything over on the TLP shop. Consider joining us on the TLP Discord. It's free to join. And if you're interested in joining the TLP crew as a journalist, a researcher, part of our data team, or as a moderator, head on over to our website, fill out an application, and we'll be looking at bringing on a few more people to the TLP crew because we believe that space is better together. Now, just under 8 minutes and counting till launch, SpaceX is getting underway. So let's listen in to SpaceX Mission Control as we count down to launch of SpaceX Transporter 8 from Slick 4E at Vandenberg Space Force Base in California.
Welcome to the webcast for the Transporter 8 mission. SpaceX's two-stage Falcon 9 rocket is currently scheduled to lift off in just under 8 minutes from now from Space Launch Complex 4 East at Vandenberg Space Force Base, just a few hours north of our headquarters in Hawthorne, California. Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in. I'm Jessie Anderson, a manager for Falcon production here at SpaceX, and I'll be your host as we follow Falcon 9 takes 72 spacecraft to low Earth orbit and beyond. As you might have guessed, today's launch marks our 8th dedicated small-sat rideshare program launch. And if you've been following along, this mission marks our 2nd launch for today, 40th launch in 2023, and 239th mission of all time. On board the 2nd stage are 72 spacecraft, including CubeSats, microsats, a re-entry capsule, and orbital transfer vehicles carrying spacecraft to be deployed at a later time. All 72 spacecraft will separate from the 2nd stage between 39 deployment events, which is scheduled to start around the T+1 hour mark. Although all 72 payloads will deploy within one deployment sequence, views and telemetry will vary throughout. In the middle of the deployment sequence, we will have a short blackout period, but as always, we'll bring you live coverage as it becomes available to us. Now, we are currently working towards a T0 of 2:35 p.m. Pacific time, which is just about 6.5 minutes from now. Weather is green and the range is ready to support. But if for some reason we don't launch today, we do have a backup opportunity tomorrow at the same time.
Hello everyone, I'm Krista Rhodes, a structures engineer here at SpaceX, and I'm joining Jesse today to cover the Transporter 8 mission. The rocket supporting our mission today is kind of like two rockets in one, the first stage and the second stage. The first stage will ignite all 9 engines at T-0, and then lift off from the launch pad and take the vehicle through the thicker parts of the Earth's atmosphere. When the two stages separate from each other, the second stage will light its single engine to propel the payloads to where they need to go for deployment. At the very top of the rocket, we have the payload fairing that protects our 72 spacecraft until the vehicle is outside the Earth's atmosphere, at which point the two fairing halves separate to expose them to the vacuum of space. And right below the fairing, we have our second stage, which houses our single Merlin vacuum engine, or MVAC engine, which will propel our payloads to their eventual destinations in space. And as a note, on today's mission is our tallest rideshare stack to date and will deliver the largest mass to orbit. You might be able to see this after fairing separation, so keep your eyes peeled. And after fairing separation, you'll notice a shorter nozzle attached to our Merlin vacuum engine, or MVAC engine, and this is because we don't need as much performance for the mission at hand today. And below the second stage is the black carbon fiber inner stage. And the inner stage connects the two stages and houses the center pusher that allows the first and second stages to separate during flight. And it also houses the MVAC engine that I mentioned moments ago.
Thanks for pressing for strong back retract.
And below that, we have the first stage, which we usually refer to as the booster. And the first stage makes up the bottom 2/3 of the vehicle and has 9 M1D engines at the bottom. And those 9 Merlin engines do the bulk of the work to get the rocket off the ground and up to the thinner parts of Earth's atmosphere. It's also the primary part of Falcon 9 that we recover, refurbish, and reuse for multiple flights, which brings down the cost of regularly launching rockets. And at about 2.5 minutes into flight, the first stage will separate and make its way back to Earth and attempt a landing at landing zone 4, as you can see on your screen, not too far away from the launch pad. And for those of you keeping track, today's mission marks this booster's 9th flight, having previously supported NROL 87 and 85, SARA 1, SWAT, and 4 Starlink missions. And if successful, this landing will also mark SpaceX's 200th landing of an Orbital-class rocket. SpaceX first successfully landed a booster back on land in December of 2015 and successfully landed on a drone ship just a few months later in April 2016. Flight-proven first stages have launched about 90% of the last 100-plus missions since the start of 2022. Recovery and reuse are incredibly important for our teams to build the most advanced rocket fleet, fly rapidly and reliably, and propel us towards our goal of full and rapid reusability with Starship.
Our goal with these missions is to provide small satellite operators competitive pricing, increased flight opportunities, and flexibility. We're flying some really cool payloads on this mission, including several different types of Earth observation and imaging, orbital transfer vehicles, student research projects, and several payloads intended to demonstrate and grow in-space technologies for our customers. Our customers today come from all over the world, supporting teams from 21 different countries and include a range of organizations from DARPA or Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency to the Vatican. Even the smallest satellites can make meaningful contributions to the care of planet Earth and our efforts to visit other worlds, and we're looking forward to providing a great ride to space for these 72 payloads on board today, just a few minutes from now.
At T-2 minutes, we are currently waiting for the completion of LOX loading on our second stage. And the white clouds that you can see circling Falcon 9 are completely normal and the result of our super chilled liquid oxygen coming into contact with the relatively warm ambient air at our launch site in Vandenberg.
Stage 2 LOX load is complete.
And as you just heard, Stage 2 LOX loading has wrapped up, and we are now waiting for Falcon 9 to go into startup at around T-1 minute. And at that point, the Falcon 9 computers will take over our launch countdown.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
And we just heard the call out that Falcon 9 is now in startup, meaning that both stages are now beginning to pressurize for launch, and the flight computers have taken over. We're now waiting for a final go for launch from our launch director.
LD is go for launch.
At T-minus 40 seconds, all systems are a go for launch of Falcon 9 with all 72 payloads on Transporter 8.
T-minus 30 seconds. Fifteen seconds. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Engines full power. And liftoff of Transporter 8. Go Falcon, go Transporter. Falcon 9 is pushing downrange. Stage 1 propulsion is nominal.
We are T plus 35 seconds into flight. Falcon 9 has cleared the tower at Space Launch Complex 4 East. We are currently throttling down the engines in
Power and
preparation.
telemetry nominal.
In preparation for Max Q, and great view you can see there on your screen of the vehicle. Max Q is the point
Falcon
of
9 is supersonic.
Max Q is the point of maximum aerodynamic stress that the vehicle will see on
Max
ascent.
Q.
And great timing, we have just passed through Max Q. Now we do have 5 events coming up in quick succession. That will be MECO, stage separation, stage 1 flip, SES1, and then the start of the boost back burn on the first stage. Now MECO is main engine cutoff. That's where we shut down all 9 of those engines
MVAC engine chill has started.
where we shut down all 9 of those engines that you can see burning there on your screen. That will help slow the vehicle down in preparation for the next event, which is stage separation. That is where the first stage will separate from the second stage. First stage will make its way back to Earth with stage 1 flip and the boost back burn, while the second stage will have SES1, or second stage engine start 1. And that's where we will ignite the MVAC engine on the second stage as it propels our payload
Falcon
to
trajectory nominal.
their targeted drop-off orbit. Again, those 5 events are coming up here in just about 15 seconds or so. That is MECO, stage separation, stage 1 flip and boost back burn, as well as SES1.
Main engine cutoff.
Stage separation confirmed. Stage 1 boost back start.
MVAC ignition.
And really cool views there. We just had MECO stage separation. You could see the first stage doing its flip maneuver, and the boost back burn has begun. On your right-hand screen, you can see that short MVAC nozzle ignited. Very, very cool views. Now we're coming up on fairing separation.
Fairing separation confirmed.
And there you can see the deployment of our fairing halves. They are now making their way back down to Earth. And we are coming up on the boost back burn here in a few seconds. Boost back burn
Stage 1 boost
conclusion.
back shutdown.
And there we heard that call out for boost back burn shutdown, and you can see on your left-hand screen as those engines shut off.
Stage 1, trajectory nominal.
Great call outs there. Now the next major milestone coming up is the entry burn on our first stage, which is scheduled to occur around the T+6 minute mark.
We're currently in our first of 2 MVAC burns. This burn should last for another 4 minutes or so. And as Jesse mentioned, the next milestone will be the first stage's entry burn coming up in about 2 minutes. For those of you who are unfamiliar, Falcon 9 performs 2 burns in order to land. The first of the 2 burns is entry burn to slow itself down before hitting the denser parts of the Earth's atmosphere. Without this burn, we'd only be using the atmosphere and Falcon's drag alone to slow down Falcon 9, which adds extra stresses on the rocket. A single Merlin 1D engine relights for entry burn, and following entry burn, the booster will go through its final burn, the landing burn, which should slow
Stage 2, trajectory nominal.
the vehicle down even more for a successful landing. And as you can see on the left side of your screen, we have 2 out of Falcon's 4 hypersonic grid fins in view. And they measure 4 feet by 5 feet and help us guide the booster to the landing site by actively changing the vehicle's center of pressure. You're also probably noticing some white puffs of gas from the first stage. And this is cold nitrogen from our attitude control system, which also helps us control the vehicle's descent. And again, the next major milestone we are waiting on is the beginning of our stage 1 entry burn, which is about 30 seconds away. Both altitude and speed are as expected for both our first and second stage.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
And as you heard, our entry burn has now began and will last for another 20 seconds.
Stage 1 entry burn shutdown. Stage 1 FTS has safed.
We've now completed a successful entry burn, and now that our entry burn has been concluded,
Stage 1, trajectory nominal.
the first stage has 1 more burn left in preparation for landing. And as I mentioned earlier, we will be attempting to recover this booster for the 9th time today and are targeting a landing on landing zone 4. Another key aspect of Falcon 9 is its landing legs, and Falcon 9's first stage is equipped with 4 landing legs made of carbon fiber with aluminum honeycomb, and they're placed symmetrically around the
Stage
base
1 transonic.
of the rocket and deploy just prior to landing. We can expect that landing burn to begin in just a few seconds.
Stage 1 landing burn. Landing leg deploy. Stage 1 landing.
And as you saw and probably just heard, we had a successful first stage landing at landing zone 4,
Stage 2, terminal guidance.
marking the 9th landing for this specific booster. It also marks SpaceX's 200th landing.
Stage 2 FTS has safed.
200th landing of an Orbital class rocket. Next up, we are expecting the shutdown of the second stage MVAC engine in about 20 seconds.
MVAC shutdown.
And with successful cutoff of
Nominal orbit.
our second stage engine, we have now heard the call and the call out for good orbital insertion. We are now tracking nominally. Coming up next, we have the second burn of our MVAC engine on board the second stage around the T+57 minute mark. We will be back in about 45 minutes to bring you live coverage of SES-2, followed shortly after by the beginning of our payload deployments. Until then, enjoy these space views, and we will see you soon.
Expect signal Vandenberg.
And if you're just joining us, welcome here to the launch pad. Another successful launch and an interesting looking landing, but Falcon 9 Booster 1071 is back on the ground after completing its 9th mission. If it's your first time here, though, stay with us as we now count down towards payload deployment, just over 50 minutes away from that first deployment. We're going to take some time to answer your guys' comments and questions, so you can send those in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad. We'll work on answering those live. If it was your first time here, though, make sure that you engage that subscribe button so you never miss another live launch coverage, docking, undocking, or return to Earth, as well as subscribe over on the Launchpad News. We got a brand new TLP News episode coming out very soon, so make sure you stay tuned for that. Make sure you're following us on Twitter to stay up to date on the latest space news. And if you're interested in joining the TLP crew, consider applying today. We're looking to bring on a couple more journalists and data entry people and researchers as we continue to work on building the world's first complete total space exploration history platform. And we'd love to have you as part of that, because ultimately space is better together. As I said, you can keep sending in those questions and we'll work on answering them. We're going to get a clock on screen here momentarily as well to give you a countdown to when that first payload deployment will occur. Payload deployment, the entire sequence is going to take about 30 minutes with all of the ride shares that are on board today, and we'll be listening in to the callouts of those as we continue through today's count. But first payload deployment expected 59 minutes, 59 seconds into today's flight. So we'll be counting down towards that, and we should have that on your screen here momentarily with a second countdown clock. And there's that second clock. Payload deployment start now. T-minus 48 minutes, 30 seconds, and counting from now. Seeing some questions come in the chat. If you want your question answered, just make sure you tag us at the launch pad, and we'll work on answering those live. Margot saying, it's the best channel ever. Well, we appreciate it, Margot. We can only do this thanks to your guys' support and being here for these launches, so we appreciate you being here with us today. Polly, question, is this really 2 launches in one day? Yes, we had a launch of a Falcon 9 from Slick 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station here in Florida early this morning, like 3:30 something this morning, and now we are back about, what are we at? About 16 hours later, and having a second Falcon 9 launch, this time from Slick 4E at Vandenberg Space Force Base in California, launched in opposite southern trajectories. First launch was carrying 52 Starlinks, and today is now is Transporter 8, carrying a whole bunch of payload ride shares all together. Manaswin, they're going to fix that to leggy leg. Yeah, we were definitely watching that. That leg came down a little bit slower than we would have normally, I think, seen. But it was a clear day at Vandenberg, so it's rare to actually be able to see the rocket landing. So that was great to see. Norman, this just doesn't get old, even though, yep, it's doesn't get old, especially seeing the return to landing sites. Those were something that were really rare up till about a year ago, and now we're seeing them almost at least 50% of the time. So that's great to see. We're seeing that new nozzle, which some love, some hate, and we'll put a poll into the chat. Do you love or hate the new mini nozzle on the second stage of Falcon 9? But that's just as SpaceX continues to innovate and perfect the Falcon 9. They're getting more power out of those 9 Merlin engines, that they're actually able to return to landing site more often, able to do shorter drone ship landings with partial boost back burns, and able to do this new mini nozzle on the second stage. Now coming up just away about 15 minutes into today's flight. Second stage now traveling over the largest part of the ocean here. That's why we don't have any live views. We are in a part where we will not have a downlink for a little bit of time till they probably come over by Australia. We might be able to get some live views of that second stage back. Catching up on some of the chat here. Again, you can keep sending in those questions by tagging us at the launch pad, and we'll work on answering those live. That's something we're going to be getting back to doing during all of our live streams. Polly, question, is SpaceX doing anything for the upcoming solar eclipse next year? They haven't announced anything, but we have been planning some coverage for it, and we'll be heading out to be on location for that. So definitely stay tuned. We're still a little ways out from announcing all of our plans for that, but know that those are in the works, and we've been talking about it for over a year on what we're going to do. 2 really great solar eclipses coming up in a close amount of time here in the United States, and we'll be covering both of those here on the launch pad. What is Transporter 8 carrying? It's a whole bunch of ride shares. Once we have that second stage view back, or if you rewind back, you can see a whole bunch of different payloads on the second stage payload holder. A bunch of CubeSats, mini-sats for different companies. And they went through a few of them prior to launch. We don't have a full list of what's all on board this time, but there's universities that have sent it up, private space groups, there are demonstration missions, and lots of different things on board that get launched during these rideshare missions. Catching in the chat here in the poll, what do you think of the new mini nozzle on the second stage of Falcon 9? 33% of you love it, 43% of you think it's cool, 17% of you couldn't care, and 6% of you are no, just no. Yeah, I'm torn. It makes sense. I'm glad to see that it's they're innovating and making Falcon 9 even more powerful and more functional, but it's weird. It looks weird, but give it 6 months and it'll look normal to us. So just like when we saw the paint change with the color of the landing legs and things like that. So always good that they're innovating and doing more. Billy Bobble, is payload deployment going to take a while if there's so many to deploy? Yes. So we are looking at about a 30-minute window of payload deployments. The first deployment, T plus 59 minutes, 59 seconds. The last payload deployment will occur at T plus 1 hour, 24 minutes, 48 seconds into flight. So there will be a large series of deployments, but unlike we've seen in some of the previous transporters where they're in chunks, this one is pretty consistent. The largest gap of time that I've seen in between like one satellite and another is maybe 90 seconds. 60, 90 seconds. There's lots of them that are only 15 to 30 seconds between each deployment. So it'll be quite a active half an hour of payload deployment. Now, depending where the second stage is, we may not be able to get confirmation or visuals of those deployments in real time, but SpaceX will come back and confirm those once they do have ground station coverage. But based on the trajectory we're going here, doing some rough thinking. I believe we should be somewhere over roughly Europe, Asia area. So we hopefully will have some ground stations for a good chunk of the payload deployments today. Peter, in the age of satellites, why do we still have a tracking issue with launches? So they are working on using Starlink for data telemetry, and SpaceX is still getting telemetry from Falcon. They are just not prioritizing visuals. There are times that they still don't get telemetry as well, especially at this part in the middle of the ocean where there's no really land. It'd be very expensive for SpaceX to build a tracking station and very difficult to. So they'd have to send out some sort of ship would be the other option. But Falcon 9 is so reliable and it has a brain that works that they don't need to. They're able to even conduct payload deployments and burns of their second stage engine without having live telemetry or downlink to mission control. It can be pre-programmed and the second stage performs it itself. So always really interesting to see what they're able to do with Falcon 9. But definitely a question that's been asked, why no consistency in cameras or in downlinks, but that's why we're still dealing with a planet that is mostly water, and we're having to navigate that. Most of the time we get pretty good telemetry, though. For the Vandenberg launches, because of the direction they have to launch, we do start off right away over the water, and that's where we see this larger gap of no information for a little bit of time here as we start. Jay, the launch director is going to have a sore throat leaving LCC this afternoon. Yeah, 72 deployments scheduled today, so going to be lots of call-outs in that half an hour. That's going to average at least one every 30 seconds, so it'll be a busy time, and we'll do our best to make sure we confirm each one as we go. And it is true, Arianespace does have a ship that they use. Yeah, I guess that's a very interesting sentence that came out of my mouth, Rainbow. Falcon 9 has a brain that works. Yeah, well, I mean, not all rockets are that smart or work. So we'll see what happens. If you guys have questions about anything space, you can send those in the chat. We're now just over 20 minutes in today's flight, just under 39 minutes, 15 seconds from that first payload deployment getting underway. Catching up, seeing if we missed any questions in the chat here. If you haven't yet, though, take a moment and engage that subscribe button so you never miss another live launch coverage right here on TLP. Of course, it is launch day, which means you can also go get 10% off over on the TLP shop. We have two absolutely beautiful photos from last night's lunar transit of the Falcon 9 launch, or this morning's. So definitely check that out. And if you guys do make a purchase, it now actually should pop up during a live coverage as well. So you'll be able to see that in the corner, a little recognition for your order and supporting us in that way. And if you do support us through purchasing of prints or metal prints, that also goes back to supporting our rocket chasers, getting them better gear and more opportunities as well. So really great option to check out there. Catching up on that poll that we did. What do you think of the new mini nozzle on the second stage of Falcon 9? We are at 79% of you either love it or think it's cool. So that's good to know. That's good to see. Lots of people excited about that new mini nozzle. Stealth asking how expensive is the second stage that burns up? It's not. It is a percentage of cost, but we don't have it directly from SpaceX, I don't believe, on an updated number. But having talked to RFA recently about their rocket, the cost of the first stage is equal to the cost of one single engine. So that is why it is so important to recover the first stage, but not the second stage. You don't want to be throwing 9 engines away, plus an additional 1 engine in cost for the tanks, where the second stage is a much smaller tank and only a singular engine. So that's why a lot of companies are trying to do recovery on their first stage rather than their second, because the second is a smaller portion of the cost and an easier one to just develop extras of and eat that cost. The first stage is quite expensive. If you want to check out that RFA interview, Jay's already beat me to it. Got the link in the chat there. Definitely check that interview out. It's an hour learning so much about RFA, Rocket Factory Augsburg out of Germany, their new launch vehicle, their new launch locations, their operations. So definitely check that out, and a big thank you to them for taking that time. And we're excited to continue that interview in person, hopefully later this year. So definitely stay tuned for that as well. Mark, why does the second stage have a smaller nozzle? They've been able to make the first stage more efficient, and the second stage that they don't need to have as large of a nozzle to have as great of a performance of the engine while in low Earth orbit. So that's why they were able to shrink the nozzle, which ultimately means less payload weight, which means they can be even more efficient on that second stage. Real Bites, good morning from India. Great to see you. Dave, how much does it cost to refurb a Falcon engine? I don't believe that's been made public data. That's something SpaceX would probably keep quite private at this point. It might be something we could get out through some of the NASA missions. There may be ways of getting numbers, but generally speaking, stuff like that on refurbishment and that process, since it's still very new to the industry, is something they keep quite quiet. We're going to take a little bit of a commentary break as we're now 35 minutes away from payload deployment beginning that about 30-minute deployment sequence. So stay with us right here on the launch pad as we count down to the beginning of the first of 72 deployments from the Transporter 8 mission, now in low Earth orbit. Stay with us.
Welcome back to our coverage of the Transporter 8 mission. We've had a great mission so far with an on-time liftoff at 2:35 p.m. Pacific time. We recovered our first stage vehicle at landing zone 4 for the 200th landing and completed the first of 2 second stage burns. Now we're just a few seconds away from our second and last relight of our MVAC engine, and this will be a quick, about 3-second burn. And there you could see the MVAC engine ignite very quickly. Again, just a 3-second burn. That was SES-2.
Nominal deploy orbit.
And SECO-2, and we just heard the confirmation of good orbit. So with that, it looks like we're on track for payload deployments to start in about 3 minutes.
As a reminder, there will be a total of 39 deployment events for our total 72 payloads that are on board the second stage. And if you're not familiar, our transporter missions are dedicated rideshare flights. And SpaceX is targeting at least 3 rideshare missions to sun-synchronous orbit per year, in addition to opportunities for a ride to orbit on our Starlink missions, which launch about once a week. And there are always some really neat payloads flying on transporter missions, and today's mission is no different. Of the 72 payloads on board the second stage today, we have CubeSats, microsats, a re-entry capsule, and an orbital transfer vehicles carrying spacecraft to be deployed at a later time. We're about 1 minute out from the start of our first set of deployments. As a reminder, we'll have a short blackout period of no ground station coverage during our deployment sequence. And if you were not aware,
Expected loss of signal, Mauritius and HBK.
And if you were not aware, ground stations are how we get live camera views and telemetry, so only some of our deployments will be visible today.
As a reminder, there are a total of 72 spacecraft that will separate from the second stage between 39 deployment events. The first 8 deployments will occur during a time where we won't have great access to ground stations, and therefore we won't have any live views, but should be able to confirm deployment based on the telemetry and data that we get from the second stage. The next 15 deployments after that should have live views and data. Then we will enter into a blackout period where we should be expecting 3 deployment events. Once we regain signal around the T+1 hour and 14-minute mark, we should be able to confirm those 3 deployments and move forward with the rest of the mission. As always, if we're able to regain signal earlier than planned, we'll provide live views and updates as it becomes available. Now, the first set of deployments should be starting here in a few seconds.
Phosphosat Ferox, separation confirmed. AII Delta, separation confirmed. JSAT, separation confirmed. Iris-1, separation confirmed. Ivy, separation confirmed. Iris-2, separation confirmed. Lemur 2, Embryonos, separation confirmed. Miser A, separation confirmed.
And great news, we have confirmed 8 deployments so far. As I previously mentioned, we were not able to have live views for those deployments, but we should be regaining ground station coverage here shortly and should have some live views of the next deployments that are coming up.
Acquisition of signal, Dubai. Lemur 2, Nazia, separation confirmed. Lemur 2, Adam Alahi, separation confirmed. Swarm space fees 168 through 179, separation confirmed. Droid 1, separation confirmed. XIV, separation confirmed. Miser B, separation confirmed. Tiger 4, separation confirmed. NewSat 40, separation confirmed. NewSat 41, separation confirmed. Expected loss of signal, Malindi.
NewSat 43, separation confirmed. NewSat 42, separation confirmed. MUSAT 1, separation confirmed. ABA, first runner, separation confirmed. Tomorrow, R2, separation confirmed. Gregoire, separation confirmed.
Very cool to see some of those deployments live in space. That confirms 23 of 39 deployments so far. As I mentioned previously, we will be heading into a blackout period until we reach our next ground station around the T plus 1 hour and 14-minute mark. If we're able to gain coverage earlier than that, then we'll be sure to bring you live views.
Losses signal, Dubai.
We'll be sure to bring you live views as it becomes available. So stay tuned, and we'll see you again soon.
have 3 deployment events during the blackout period, which we will hear confirmed over the nets shortly.
Third ISI satellite, separation confirmed. Hotsat 1, separation confirmed.
Acquisition signals forward. Fourth ISI satellite, separation confirmed. Skycraft 3, separation confirmed. Ghost 3, separation confirmed.
And another great call out and views of another deployment. I may have missed it earlier, but we did confirm that we did call out successful confirmation of the 3 deployments that happened in the blackout period. And we're well on our way into payload deployment, having had 31 successful deployments so far.
DARPA's Blackjack Aces 2, separation confirmed. QPS SAR 6, amateur 3, separation confirmed. Runner 1, FOSAT, Delta, separation confirmed.
Expected loss of signal, Coon Hilly.
Ion SCV 011, Savvy Simon, separation confirmed. DARPA's Blackjack, Aces 4, separation confirmed. DARPA's Blackjack, Aces 1, separation confirmed. Varda's Winnebago 1, separation confirmed.
Acquisition signal, Inifik.
DARPA's Blackjack Aces 3, separation confirmed.
And with that confirmation, we've successfully deployed all payloads on today's mission.
If you're interested, a full listing of today's payloads can be found over at SpaceX.com. We would like to thank all of our rideshare customers for their support on today's mission, and of course, our viewers for your continued support. As I mentioned earlier, Transporter 8 marks SpaceX's 40th mission of the year. That's 40 launches in just 6 months, and it marks our 200th landing of an orbital-class rocket. It's taken a lot of hard work and dedication from our teams to get to this milestone today, and to give you an idea of what 200 launches and landings look like, we'll leave you with an animation showcasing our past and current launch manifest. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you again soon.